Episode 9.
This is episode 9.
Episode 9, yeah, of The Fabric of America.
Why don't you start that off a little cleaner?
What? That was awesome. Okay. Welcome back to The Fabric of America. My name is Matthew Banover.
My name is Melissa Otto.
And episode 9.
Episode 9.
Oh my God.
We're almost to double digits.
How is this possible?
You say that every time.
It really, it blows my mind. Every time we sit on this couch, I'm just fascinated by the fact that we're doing this.
I know. Couple of crazy kids.
Yeah, just
two wild and crazy guys.
Just see what kind of wacky adventures we could get into.
Poor listener.
Yeah, no, the listener's like, and I'm putting on Bill Maher or something. Time to put on Theo Vaughn. All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to listen. And today we got a good topic, but we're going to get into that afterwards because this outfit that you're coming in hot with.
I was very intentional in this outfit today.
I need to hear it. I need to hear all about it. I also really dig that for the most part, I'd have to go back and see the footage, like an NFL game, check the footage. For the most part, we don't talk about what we're going to wear.
No, we don't coordinate.
Don't coordinate at all.
Get dressed and see how it goes.
I think for the most part, we've been pretty much on the same vibe.
Generally.
You know, like when one of us dresses up, we both tend to be dressed up.
I mean, maybe one of us is carrying the team more than the others. Sometimes.
I mean, my stuff is pretty nice.
It is. So. I actually meant you. I wasn't.
No, God, no. Most of these outfits I'm in, I decided to go casual randomly. And then it's you look at the footage, I'm casual every time.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like the listener can understand, being who you are. When I say that every time I see you, I feel this inordinate amount of pressure to actually get dressed better, which I know you love. But then they're you'll still come in and I'll be like, I couldn't do it, Matt. These are my finest sweatpants today.
You're in your coal mining
literally
trousers.
Outfit. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, no, I like this that we're both.
I did it up today.
I do feel like we're both kind of bringing it.
I agree. So my jazzy outfit is from hold your applause, your laughter, maybe till the end. Country Suburban.
Okay. Country.
No doubt a brand you've heard of.
Yes. Yes.
Country Suburban. But
it's indie fashion line.
Yeah. But really what it is vintage. So I got this outfit. It is actually a shirt and skirt combo. And I found it at a vintage shop. What?
Hold on. Describe, because I feel like if the listener is only listening.
Okay.
They're not envisioning.
They want to know. They need to know.
This looks like a dress.
It looks like a dress.
Same exact fabric.
Same material for the skirt and the top.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a white. It's got a little stripe with a nub kind of texture, like white on white. I think it's all cotton. Again, I got to start checking these labels ahead of time, but it's very light and lovely and airy. I think somewhere in there's a union tag too.
I love it. Yeah, it's definitely giving Southern Belle.
Little 70s, late 60s, early 70s, which is exactly why I bought it. It has a little puff on the sleeve with a little band to kind of keep it tight into the arm. I feel like I want to go to an all white disco party when I wear it. I feel like I should be in platform shoes and a whole thing.
I feel like you should be getting courted on your wraparound porch by male
drinking
suitors.
Lemonade or sweet tea or something. Yeah, I don't disagree. It's all in the styling, right? It's all in the styling.
Yes.
So I purposely wore. So this is white on white, but I had a very cool vintage black Ferragamo belt. Everything the belt, the skirt, and the top are all from a vintage store that was here in Chester, Connecticut called Nostalgia. The brick and mortar is no more.
Oh, no.
I know. The woman who runs it does go to some of the vintage markets.
Okay.
So there's a place called Monger's Market. So I've been told that she shows up there.
Shout out to Monger's.
She's fantastic. I'm so sad that the shop is no more. I was so glad I found a couple of really great treasures. I did a little binge with one of my employees before the shop had closed. So I have no regrets. So I have this beautiful black and gold Ferragamo belt. And then my shoes, I wanted to wear my little ankle strap kind of 70s style shoes. These are actually Dolce & Gabbana heels.
Wow.
But again, secondhand from Vestiaire.
Okay.
Vestiaire is this awesome resale company. In my opinion, they are better than a place like the Real Real. They have a better
Ooh,
reputation.
Hot take alert.
Not even hot take. Real Real's been having some trouble.
Those are shots fired.
I mean, sure, but I
We're
stand
going
by
to
it.
war with
Fine.
Real Real.
I stand by it. The Real Real sucks. I don't trust
Okay.
anything that's on there. I've heard that there's been issues with employees like stealing stuff.
I will tell you, I have no idea what the Real Real is.
Oh, stop.
I'm just trying to light the fire.
I'm so disappointed. So the Real Real, Vestiaire, Poshmark, whatever, are these places. They're resale websites, basically. So consumers can go so on Poshmark, you resell your own stuff, like an eBay kind of thing. On Vestiaire, you can either submit it to their like home base. They have a couple different hubs, or you can sell it directly yourself. But it's a lot more designer brand oriented. They have a lot more checks and balances for authentication, things like that. So the Real Real is the same thing. I don't know that they were necessarily first on the scene. I believe Vestiaire is based in Europe. Real Real is based over here. But the Real Real has been having a lot of trouble in recent years with really pushing hard on their employees to acquire a lot of goods. There have been people's very expensive items being sold for not a lot of money, which has been a big problem.
Yeah.
There have been things that have gone missing or gotten stolen along the way. A lot of whistleblowing happening inside that company. So I hope that they can pivot and have a come to Jesus and do better. But we'll see. But for now, that's a no for me on shopping with them. So anyway, I bought my cool shoes on Vestiaire. And I love them. They're super comfortable. And then I wore my great-grandmother's vintage little watch. It's a little golden leather band. It's teeny tiny. It's very tiny. But it's a wind-up watch. So like it never runs out of battery. I just have to wind it back up.
Timepiece.
I love
if
it.
You will.
I love it so much. It's got little enamel on it and it's just cool. And then for my jewelry, I wore this very cool pendant. It's a gold pendant. I'm starting to realize, by the way, from doing this podcast that I have like dope jewelry.
You do.
Like I feel every
time you get to the jewelry portion, I'm always like, this is the most interesting.
Yes, right? So this is a golden pendant. It's a replica of the stained glass window in San Jacinto. And this my cousin had brought over when they came for a visit and they gifted to me. So it's a very cool pendant. It's got a nice little patina on it. It's not like all solid gold, but I love the piece. So I felt like it jived with like the vintagey vibes in black and gold.
I will say I've definitely noticed that because most times when I come and visit you, you're in sweats, you're in work clothing because you're on your hands and knees. Yes.
Yep.
It's been nice to see all of these different outfits on the podcast because I get to see the full breadth of your creativity.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is something that I've been noticing a lot more, especially with all of the pieces, because it's like, to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, she bought the watch, the belt, and the shoes at the same time because they all match so well.
Thank you. I didn't, but I appreciate you. Yeah. Yes. I appreciate that that's the thought.
Yeah.
And actually, well, all right. So the belt is smooth leather, but my watch band is actually like a lizard leather, and the shoes have like a snaky kind of texture too. So I didn't even catch that little detail, but thank you for noticing.
Definitely.
I always like to, and this goes back to like when I was like a teen and kind of finding some of my own like style aesthetic. I never fit in with like a particular crowd. And at the time I thought that was a bad thing. And now in kind of coming into my own and feeling a lot more confident in who I am and like how I present myself to the world, I realize like I'm different every day. So like sometimes like I want to dress like vintage, 70s gal, or sometimes I want to be inspired by like Sophia Loren in Italy. And other times I want to be inspired by like Erica Jane from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And so I'm going to wear like a Yorkie pony and ripped up jeans and high heels. Like it just depends. So whichever way the wind is blowing, that's
awesome.
The way you find me.
I like the bow because it reminds me of my friend. I don't know if you know her also, Shannon from SMS Photography.
I know of her.
Yeah. Her signature look is with a bow.
Oh, nice.
That's her thing. Every day at work, she puts on a bow. And so when we were talking, she was like, she likes like neutrals and simples. Yep. Cause she's like, fashion, it's not paramount. Like,
And you're like,
I'm
but
like,
that is
you're
your
crushing it. Yeah,
style,
this is
right?
the look, you know, it's so branding. And she was like, yeah, no, my bow is my look. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how much it's saying about you.
Right.
And that's such a great thing,
Yep.
you know, that you're like so naturally doing it. I love it.
I love it.
Yes, you're crushing it.
Thank you.
10 out of 10.
Appreciate you.
Yes. You know what's so wild is that I don't know if I've ever thrifted anything.
Come on.
Swear to God. Swear to God.
That makes me actually really sad for you.
Yeah, I know.
Thrifting is
It's so interesting because in the sustainable community, it feels like people fall into two different camps, and we're both of those camps.
Okay.
I choose sustainability through making new clothing very intentionally.
Okay.
Here is my one trouser
Yep.
that is going to serve all the purposes and it's going to last me 30 years. I don't need a bunch. I just need the one trouser.
Such a
or
guy.
something. Yes. Whereas there are the others who love thrifting. It's not that I have anything against it. It's just I never think about it.
Yeah. It's such a treasure hunt.
I love going for things. Like I love buying things from, I think my last 4 birthdays, I've gone to antique shops and stuff like that.
I was going to say, I think you do not know what that means because you have
thrift clothing.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Let's specify clothing because you have very cool like antique pieces,
all antique
really
stuff,
cool vintage finds,
random stuff like that. Absolutely. You go
You're
into
talking about clothing.
Clothing. Yep. I've never thrifted a piece of clothing.
So
like I've
fun.
never gotten a pair of jeans.
That's where I find like a sense of like pleasure and happiness because I, you know, as a person who would be a shopper, like going to the Marshalls and like digging through to find a treasure there, let's say, I get the same like thrill without the guilt.
Yeah.
And so it's nice when I want to just do something, if it's it's a pastime, or if I'm bringing my clothes to donate, I will kind of do a little bop around a store and it makes me feel like I just don't have the guilt from shopping. Yeah. So I find that to be a really fun thing because to your point about intentional shopping, now in my life, I am very intentional in either grabbing a custom made something specific from you, or if I'm kind of doing a little cleanup and I'm like, I need a very specific white shirt or whatever, I will go hunt for those things with intention of quality and longevity or whatever the purpose of the garment is. But you know, it's just a little bit in my nature to just like to shop.
That's awesome.
And so I like to shop for vintage stuff or thrifting things, or I love Goodwill is fantastic. Like it's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah. So
now on to you, sir. Let's discuss.
Oh yes, I am feeling myself today. So let's start bottom to top. So love these shoes. Meslon, made in Spain.
Those are really handsome shoes.
Handmade. I've had.
Is that called a spectator style when they have that?
Yes. Yep. Two different contrast
things. Thank you.
Leathers.
Not articulating well.
Yes. But spectator styles, people think of that way more with like zoot suits, like black and white, you know. So I got these, oh my God, 10 years ago, actually. And I take them to my cobbler and he takes care of them. And I have not really bought a pair of shoes in the last 5 or 6 years.
That's awesome.
I bought a bunch about 10 years ago.
Yep.
And they've just
all gone.
No.
Oh, you got them all? Okay. I thought you were trying to say like they've gone the way of the wind.
No,
okay.
God, no.
You just mean you bought the right things and now we're working with what we have.
I'm kind of sad because I'm like, I want more shoes, but I'm like, I can't justify it. These shoes are amazing. Yep. I love them. I get compliments on them like they're brand new.
They're
all
super
the time.
duper sharp.
Like yesterday, I got a compliment just in the bank. Somebody was like, those shoes are awesome. And I was just like, thank you. But yeah.
The best thing about quality leathers and stuff too is like I was talking about the patina on my necklace. The patina on these leather, like the tips of your toes are a little bit worn out, but it like is part of the character of the shoe. It doesn't take away from it. It actually enhances it.
Yeah. And I'll take it to the cobbler and you will think that this is brand new.
Yeah.
It's literally like the guy
I love that style
from Toy Story 2 when he's like painting the toys and making
fixing them up.
Like it's like that. It's amazing. Don't look at my socks.
What a shame. What a wasted opportunity.
I'm ashamed of myself. My pants, these are made in Rochester at a new factory I was trying out. They're a little bit more machine made, so I was very excited about that. I went with a much longer break than I normally do. So I'm usually, my outseam is probably 39, and that's like the pant hitting the top of the shoe.
Right. I was going to say, explain to the listener what break is if they don't know.
So the break is how much pant is resting on your shoe. So a slight break is like a little bit of a wrinkle, and a medium break is like maybe a full wrinkle, and a full break is, a lot of fabric.
Your pant is coming over your shoe.
Yes, exactly. And then there's like no break or a crop pant, which you'll see on like the NBA. People just full on ankle.
I love that look though. Sorry, just had to throw that in there. It's been a look for a while. I get why we're starting to swing the pendulum the other way.
I remember I was at Joseph A. Bank and my pants didn't come near my shoes, and I was like, yeah, all about the different socks. And it was like that. And now I'm like, I'm looking for a little bit more timeless. Went with cuffs and they're pleated and I'm psyched about that. The fabric is from American Woolen. So these were milled in Connecticut and made in New York.
That's awesome.
I mean,
everything super local.
Let's go. This was the first custom shirt I made when I started Bards.
Wow.
4 years old, 4.5 years old. I did a French cuff. I did like a Peaky Blinder club collar,
I like
rounded.
The curve.
Yep. I was thinking about doing the bar through it. But I drive so much. I usually unbutton my top buttons. So I was like, let me not. Okay. But yeah, so the style choice was very intentional. This tie I recently bought while I was in Philly visiting a friend's store. I've visited twice in 1 year, and this tie was there both times. And I was like,
no way.
It's a sign.
There you go.
I need it.
It's a good color combo.
I love it. Yeah. I love the texture of it. It is made in Italy, but I was like, you're a small business. So I'm 50-50 on that.
Right.
So I was happy about that. And then this jacket is Drago fabric, so made in Italy. And then I went with a completely deconstructed look, and made in America, made in New York.
Love it.
Patch pockets. I actually made this jacket with the intention of getting these pants, with the intention of both of them matching the shoes.
Stop. All right. Yeah. Fully planned. No accidents.
This was 10 months in the making.
Wow. And the reward is sweet, sir.
Thank you very much.
Your patience has been rewarded.
People would bow to it. And then my jewelry, I pretty much wear the same jewelry, but 2 bracelets, one from the 8th Element, one from Catherine. I need to get her name because it scratched off this. Catherine bracelet, the Catherine bracelet.
I don't know. We can tag We'll put it in the notes.
And then my niece Sadie made the USA.
I love that. That's always my favorite.
Yeah, I wear this all the time.
And it's perfect for the Fabric of America podcast.
It really is. I'm just like so excited. I love wearing it. And then I did forget my cufflinks, but it's okay. I normally wear these cufflinks that my dad actually said one day a couple of years ago. He was like, Matt, you're getting more into clothing. I have all these things. You want to go look through them? Wow. And I went and he had all these cufflinks, all tie bars, cufflinks, pocket watch things that like his dad gave him, his grandfather gave him, that I don't have that kind of relationship with my dad of like, my father gave me, he thought he was just giving me like some leftover junk.
Yeah.
And I was like, this
That's so funny. And it's so much more.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about my grandmother's jewelry. Like, I'm like, oh, my game is elevated now, but that was all Grandma Lucy.
Yeah. He gave me a pair of shoe trees to go in the shoes.
Yeah.
And they have his initials in them. And I'm like, that's so sick. Yeah. They're made by Alden. So I think they were made in Massachusetts.
That's cool.
So and I was like, Dad, you don't know what this means to me.
Oh.
Yeah. So the history.
And he was like, get out of here, son.
Exactly. He was like, you are grounded. I was like, but I'm 30. This is a couple of years ago. So, but it was so nice to like see the history of these items.
Perfect segue again. So you're talking history.
Deadpan into the camera.
purposely wore my vintage for this exact reason.
How did we do
this?
There
are no accidents.
How did we do this?
There are no accidents.
What do you want to talk about today?
I wanted to talk about like clothing history today. I'm so excited. So like my angle, I knew you were going to love this too, being like a super history buff. So I know that this is right there within your wheelhouse. I have been reading this awesome book lately called When Women Ran Fifth Avenue. Yeah. And that we've had conversations about it, and I'm about a little more than halfway through the book, and it's really, really turned my brain on into the way we shop and the way we consume clothing, which has been kind of a constant theme throughout our conversations. But it's really fascinating to note how things changed, how rapidly they changed, and why they changed. And right?
Wild.
Flip that table. First flip of the day. We should just start have a flip counter. Exactly. We'll put a little flip thing count in the corner. Yeah. So flip number 1. I just think I'm awed by how crazy
Has this
our
book
history
been on
is.
Your radar?
It was not. Okay. So really quick side story. It's got to be relatively new. And the reason why I say that is you and I went to the local bookstore, RJ Julia.
Go on.
And I went with you to meet Rachel Slade, who we've talked about many times already.
Our lives have never been the same.
Never been the same. And so Rachel wrote a book called Making It in America. And because of going there and doing that, I purchased the book and I got on RJ Julia's email list. Yeah. And they very smartly send me just 1 email a week. Thank you, RJ Julia, for not spamming my inbox. But it's usually a highlight reel of, their upcoming books or feature books and authors that they may have coming to talk. And they had the author of this book coming and they highlighted the book.
Oh, really?
And so, of course, based on title alone, I'm like,
yeah,
sign me up. And I couldn't go to the book signing and the discussion. No. So I was really bummed about that. I was working that night. But I did head into RJ Julia's second location on the Wesleyan campus here in Middletown. And I picked up the book. I picked up so many more things. I hadn't ever been in that shop.
It's so gorgeous.
It's so beautiful.
Stunning.
And I was like, just take my wallet. Like,
could you imagine if that was your college bookstore?
No.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I'd be broker than broke. Yeah. But it was so beautiful. So anyway, needless to say, I had a great experience. I picked up the book. It had not been on my radar. And I dove right in a couple of weeks ago when I was on vacation. And I have no regrets. It's fascinating. So the brief synopsis, it's about several women who came to run several of the shops along Fifth Avenue. So like Lord and Taylor and a couple of others that were big names at the time. So one of the things that they highlight, and I'll kind of kick it off in this sphere, and you and I can kind of dialogue it back and forth, but is really the invention of the modern day sewing machine. Okay. And so we all know that Singer did not actually invent the sewing machine, but he perfected it. And so that was around the 1850s. I think it was 1851 that he took out the patent, or he did the patent for that. And it really revolutionized everything we know
about the cotton gin. It's
shopping, about clothing.
Yeah, these pivotal moments of you learn about the cotton gin in the context of what it did for slavery, but you don't learn about it in the context of what it did for clothing. Right. Like, this is one of the things that blows my mind is facts not being contextualized in all of their ramifications. Like, we talk about slavery all the time. And it's always in the context of like, America had slavery. People were enslaved. They picked cotton. Then the cotton gin came out. And then slavery ended. But like,
such an oversimplification.
No textbook I ever remember reading, no explanation of like, well, where was all the cotton going?
Right.
What
were they having people farm for?
Right. They only ever said like, the South would be, the South got mad at Lincoln for saying, you're going to disrupt our economy and our way of life. But like, what does that mean? And you think about the concept of the Civil War was days away from becoming a world war because the American South supplied the majority of the world with cotton. How insane is that?
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And literally Britain was in contact with Abraham Lincoln. And they were like, you better stop effing around. Because if you start a war and it disrupts the
whole world economy, yep,
we're going to come back over there and rock your shit.
That's exactly what he said.
That's the transcript. Yep. That's what Britain said. Yeah, this is why. So the listener may not know, I wanted to be a history teacher.
Yep.
That was another timeline. And that's how I would have taught it.
That's what you would have said.
That's what I would
You'd
have.
be like, I'm the cool teacher.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to talk about how that, but like that stuff really does blow my mind when we talk about like contextually. Okay, so now that the South is no longer picking cotton by hand, you can actually have a machine do it. The output is so great. The economy has a massive boom. The rest of the world is now dependent on fabric, cotton and materials coming from the South, what that means to the world economy, that it almost became a world war. And the only reason it didn't was because there was a depression around the 1800s. So a lot of people couldn't afford clothing. So while America did its little Civil War thing, the rest of the world was just chilling. Like, all right, well,
right.
We'll
we can't afford it anyway.
Yeah. So like, let them figure this out.
Crazy.
Yeah. Insane. But the Singer sewing machine, where was that made?
New York, no? Right?
Yes. Yes. The Marrow machine came from Connecticut.
Yeah, that I knew, which is fascinating. For those of you that don't know, the Marrow machine, or also called like an overlocker, it's the machine that cuts and sews, kind of binds the edge of materials.
It's so cool. Like I went into the building where they have it. It's United Way has their headquarters there.
No kidding.
And I walked in, and somebody immediately, my friend Rebecca Castano was like, Matt, you got to come check this out. And I was like, what? And she was like, look at these pictures. And I was like, what? And it was all these pictures of the Marrow machine being created.
Cool.
And it's an old mill building where they made the Marrow machine and did all the sewing.
I love that.
It was so fascinating. So, oh my God, I could just go on like a million different tangents.
Sewing machine.
It brings up to me this concept of ready-to-wear clothing.
Oh, yeah.
Let's tackle this beast.
So let's start from just before that, right? So when we talk ready to wear, we're talking about clothes that come ready to be worn, right? So the stuff you would go into the little like circular roundabout racks and you would pluck something off the hanger, and there are several there ready to be worn. But prior to that, all of the clothing was, we'll call it custom made, quote unquote, because made to order, made to measure, because it was your mom making it and then mending it and adjusting it as you got older, or your grandmother or whomever. It was a local tailor or shop. If you had more means, you would get, a certain amount of dresses, let's say, made in a year, because you had events to go to, depending on your economic, social standing.
A perfect example is Bridgerton.
Absolutely.
They have that one seamstress. They go in, and the seamstress, the pattern maker, the dressmaker, whatever her title was, knows everybody's sizes, knows.
I'm going to hang my head because I haven't watched Bridgerton, but I am watching Gilded Age, and they do have a similar scene in there where she goes into the dressmaker shop and they're holding up and draping the fabric, and they're talking about the styles.
Fascinating about the Gilded Age and Bridgerton, because they both came out around the same time. This concept of society. Society was like a noun. It's a place you went
to. Yeah.
It was,
you wanted to get there.
Yeah. I'm dressing up to unveil myself to society.
Yep.
That concept I'd never thought of.
Yeah.
Because now
perfect for you as a clothing storyteller.
Because now we talk about like, am I going into public? Am I just
right?
Am I going to put on a bra when I go to the grocery?
Am I on Zoom? So I'm going to wear a suit on top and my basketball shorts on bottom.
But before, it was like you created a wardrobe for society to see you. It was this place. You had a social status, and society had seasons. Yep. It wasn't just going into public. Yep. It was the Hamptons or something like that.
And this was a time of rules. I know you've talked a bit in your social stuff about, the rules of wearing white after Labor Day and stuff like that. But there were these general rules that you had to abide by in order to be accepted into society. And there was, there was a structure. And so it was
so cool.
Designed to keep certain people in and certain people out. So ready to wear.
Yes.
So this concept now, the Singer sewing machine comes out. And I think the statistic was something like people made like like $500 annually or something like that. Does that sound about right? And the Singer sewing machine cost $125.
Yeah.
And Mr. Singer was like, I don't give a hoot about what this does for society. I just want my dime.
Yeah.
Like he has like some famous quote where he did not care about the implications on society. He was just like, I want to get paid. And he was credited as developing one of the first payment plans. And thousands upon thousands of people had these sewing and bought these sewing machines on payment plans because they knew that it was going to change their lives. And so not only did people have now these personal home sewing machines, but now you're using sewing machines in a factory setting in the mid and late 1800s, and you are churning clothing out so much quicker than you ever have before, to the point where now you are filling up these retail spaces, and this is becoming your new norm of shopping. And now you're seeing the seasonality of the clothing change. You're seeing more frequency. And again, now because you're mass producing, you charge less per piece. And then people are buying more and more and more. So now we're seeing the birth of this sort of consumerism economy that starts to take shape in the early 1900s.
And I think that that's the door hinge aspect of this whole conversation, is that all of this ready-to-wear, all of this consumerism is new. It's a new concept. It's not, well, this is how it's always been done.
Right.
If you look at the context of buying clothing is as old as human beings are.
Yep.
I mean, really think about that. Like you think back 2024 years ago, year zero, people were buying clothing back then. Then you go back 10,000 more years, people where there was still trading of clothing,
the bartering
making
and stuff,
of clothing. Yeah, bartering. Retail, as we know it, is one of the oldest industries on the planet. You have thing, I have thing, we exchange,
right.
I take. And then it has just gotten more refined. When it comes to clothing, it was very much made to order. There was, I have this fabric, we'll make something. You look at Peaky Blinders, you look at shows or movies from the 1920s. You look at union workers, dock workers, blue collar people are all in button down shirts. They're in suits.
Yep.
It's because it was like made with intention.
Yeah. It
was very much, I'm making you this one shirt, and if the cuffs get worn out, we can swap out the cuffs. If the collar gets worn out, we can swap out the collar. I'm going to make you this suit that's a heavier fabric. It's meant to keep you warm, but it'll still look nice while you're out in public. And then this boom of ready-to-wear changed everything. And it really came about because of the world wars. Changed everything. Because of the world wars, there was a need for uniforms. There was a need for medical supplies. There was a need for parachutes. Fabric had never been so in demand.
Coveted. Yep.
Ever before in the history of the world with such immediate need.
Yep.
And so the government actually said, enough. You can't buy X amount. They would actually allot certain companies. You can only buy X amount of fabric.
Right. You had a cap.
Yep. You had a cap on the amount of fabric you would buy. And so what that turned into was companies saying, well, if I can only make this much, I can't make one piece for whoever walks through the door. I'll just make a one size fits kind of most, small, medium, large. That's where this concept came from.
This general sizing.
Yes. Yep. One size fits whoever, and we can tweak it when you come in. We have now sizes. We have fits. We have this.
It's also that time where we got away from super pristine tailoring for that exact reason too, because we all had to kind of make allowances, we'll call it. And so clothing was a little bit more loose fitting and a little bit more generically sized.
Yeah. And then there was also, there's so much about this time that is fascinating. Women used to really, one of the staple pieces was stockings.
Yep.
And stockings were one of the first things to go. Like the
course.
government was like, you can't. No, we need this material. But a woman couldn't be seen in society without
Her
stockings.
stockings.
So there were actually companies that you could go to, and they would put you stand up on the pedestal,
And they would paint your stocking seam.
draw a
Yep.
line down the
Yep.
back of your legs, so
Yep.
it looked like you were wearing stockings.
I remember reading about that.
Wild, that concept. And
again, you better adhere to the rules.
Yes.
Otherwise, you were a harlot.
yeah, like what are you doing out in public without your stockings?
Legs.
Yeah, but you had like this smudged line.
Yeah,
Like
yep.
I can't even imagine. But then there were the people who wanted to stick it to the man. And this is where like show of wealth has always been a concept in clothing.
Sure.
But I'm wearing pleats, for example. One of the reasons why bigger, boxier garments were so prevalent and ready to wear, because it was, look at me. I can afford this
I
much
can afford
fabric.
extra fabric.
I have so much fabric. I'm going to layer it up.
Yep.
I'm going to double it up.
Yep.
I'm going to.
Well, and that's also why you see higher society having big elaborate bustles, ruffles, this and that. It was material on top of material on top of material and mixtures of colors and textures and everything, because that was how you showed your social standing, because everyone else who was in the poorer end of the spectrum was wearing very plain frocks, very simple pants, or when we get into denim, like
Maxi
that sort of a thing.
dresses.
And high society wouldn't be caught dead. There was no way.
Yeah, yeah. And then you had in California, you had the rioters, the zoot suit riot. So a zoot suit is this extreme suit. I mean, you're talking a jacket down to your calves.
Yep.
You're talking quadruple pleats.
Big wide trouser
Just
legs. Yep.
huge pants, huge lapels, because all of these people of color were being drafted into these wars, yet there was so much racial disparity that they were saying, well, you want me to fight for this country. You want me to die for this country. Yet I don't have rights.
I'm not a full citizen here at home.
This is pre-civil rights era. This is all this. So they were like, you know what? To hell with you. Not only am I not going to your goddamn war, I'm wearing a suit, and I'm
with an extreme amount of fabric.
I'm using as much fabric as I can humanly muster. And so this style became a form of rebellion, and the zoot suit riots were a huge part of it. It was really like ready to wear clothing had this surge during that period where people were saying like, okay, now that the wars are going on, how do I get my hand on more clothing? And stores became more adept. They had a better understanding, but it was really only in the 50s when this started to change. And to give a little bit more context before what happened next was George Washington, your
man.
My everything.
That's your man.
That's
your boy.
My North Star. My absolute. So I love to say that George Washington is basically America's first fashion icon. He loved fashion so much. So that he basically went to war over drip. Like he was like so tired of asking Britain, because when these settlers came to America, there was no factories, there's no mill, there's no nothing.
Yeah, where'd you get all your stuff?
So they had to be like, hey, Britain, we don't want to be a part of your country, but like, can you send some fabric over here? Because I need clothing. So yeah. So George Washington, one of his first things was like, we need to have our own manufacturing. We need to support manufacturing here. He did that by on his inauguration day, he wanted to let people know it has to be fashionable for people to wear clothing made in America. And so he actually got his suit for his inauguration made in Hartford,
That is
Connecticut.
your favorite fact.
I want it like tramp stamped on me. Like I just want everybody to know it and see it.
When that happens, we'll post the picture.
Yes. It truly is one of the most astounding facts that George Washington, everybody had said, wear your general outfit, wear wear this. You're General George Washington, the first president,
Yep.
this. He was like, no, I'm wearing a suit because we need to do this. And
He needed to be the example.
one of the first executive orders ever made in the history of America was about manufacturing of clothing and textiles. It was George Washington trying to promote tax incentives for keeping production here. Yep. So it was like, stop getting fabric from overseas, stop ordering fabric from Paris, stop worrying about society in Paris, because there still was like, well, if society in Paris is doing this, we should do this in America.
I mean, that lasted through past the 40s and 50s.
Exactly. But so it was like, no, we need to stop. We need to separate this. We need to have our own thing. Yeah. That carried on until the 1960s when NAFTA was brought into existence because the politicians at the time wanted to empower trade in other countries with other countries. And it has been the worst thing to happen to the world.
I think probably a lot of listeners don't know that it goes back so far. Yeah. I thought this was a newer concept.
Yeah.
It is, in fact, not. But will you explain to the listener what NAFTA is?
Yes.
How much time do we have? No.
Yes.
Give us the abbreviated version. Yes. We know you're long-winded.
Yeah, exactly. So this episode is 5 hours long. So NAFTA was essentially saying that there's no more incentives for manufacturing in America. Yep. So what that basically meant was that companies like say Hickey Freeman or something, they would get tax incentives for the more employees they had, the bigger factory, the bigger all that. Right. There was no more of that. They got rid of those tax incentives. So then companies had to look at their bottom line and say, well, it costs me more to pay this American worker.
Right.
What I can do is to keep my costs low is I can have it made overseas and then shipped over here. It's still more cost effective to do that. So then immediately all of these jobs went overseas. That is when we saw the massive drop in American manufacturing.
Yep.
And we have some stats on those.
We do.
In the 1960s, 98% of clothing bought in America was made in America. Like, that's insane to think about. Listener, think about all the clothing you've ever bought. Think about all the clothing your friend has ever bought, and their friend, and your mom, and your brother. Think about all that clothing bought in your life.
Yep.
Think about 98% of that being made in America. Here.
Yep.
Like, actually think about that.
And it wasn't, obviously, with so much being made in America, it's therefore not difficult to find anything made in America. Yeah. Think about today, the hunt you have to go on to find something, anything, not just clothing, anything made in America. Yeah. And we'll get to the loopholes about like where things are made and how that goes in just a second. But
Nightmares. But
now we're down to 3%.
3% of clothing bought in America is made in America. 3%. From 1960 to 2024. 3%. That is insanity. And then you think about in the 60s, we're talking about suits and dock workers, and clothing was more expensive and people weren't buying as much. So you also have to think about the amount of clothing being bought now.
Right.
All the way down to 3%.
So I want to go back a little bit kind of on that tangent about how much clothing people bought and how they cared for and what they did. But there was something you and I had talked about in just like a conversation in life about the size of closets.
Yeah.
And how closets used to be
tiny.
Yeah. Because that's all you needed.
Yeah.
And now we talk about these big walk-ins. People take a whole room of their house to convert it into their luxurious closet. And it's great.
Convert their attic into the closet.
A whole walk-in closet space. And so that dynamic has shifted from where clothing was utilitarian, a little bit fashionable, depending on your socioeconomic standing, how much you had, how much space it took up in your home. And now it has gotten out of control. But along the way, we've lost out on that process and that depth in those roots where it's not as meaningful anymore. Yeah. And I think we're starting to see the pendulum tick back the other way. We're kind of on the cusp. And I say all that to say also that, from the 60s to now is not that long of a time.
No.
That's my parents' lifetime. My parents are still kicking. So there's nothing that says, because I think a lot of people throw their hands up and go, well, we're too far gone. We're in too deep. We can't make a change. And you and I have kind of threaded this theme throughout that it doesn't take one person doing it perfectly. It's about all of us collectively doing every just little step that we can. Nobody needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody should be trouncing on anybody for not being perfect.
Yeah.
Every single little iota morsel of change helps affect the bottom line. And so there's nothing that says that in our lifetime, in our children's lifetime, my children's lifetime, you don't have kids.
In my cat's lifetime.
In your cat's life, well, maybe. It's shorter lifespan. Yeah. But in these next generations, why we can't watch that pendulum tick back the other way. It's all about your force of will and how much do we want it, and how do we as consumers with the dollar power take back that control.
Yes, that is huge. We're in an election year, so using that symbolism is fantastic because the dollar is a vote. You are voting. I want this company over that company.
Yep. That's a very interesting perspective.
Going to a Starbucks isn't just saying this is convenient. It's I want you more than I want that.
I want you to be around.
Yep, I want you to be around. I vote you into more prevalence in society than the other one. A local clothier.
Yep.
You're not getting the votes. You're not going to be around.
I'm just hearing that. Pick me.
Yes, exactly.
Choose me.
Pick me.
Love me.
Yeah, literally.
That just audio is in my head right now. That's exactly it.
Yeah, all small
That's
business.
Every small business owner in the corner just going,
is a pick me girl. Yeah.
I'm over here.
$1.
I'll take my glasses off. I'm the really pretty girl. Just let me take my glasses off.
Do a funny dance, please. Yeah. $1 is a vote. It is that's all. It's as plain and simple as that. And so making a decision to
that should be the title of this episode.
Yes. I just need something quick.
Yeah.
It's not something quick. It's a vote. It's that you prioritize something quick as a better way of living.
Yep. With
no thought of the ramifications.
Right.
When we look,
because there are ramifications for someone else, Matt.
Yes. Oh my God. So to talk about this whole learned concept, think about, and Rachel Slade brought this up, and it has kept me awake because it's such a profound outlook, and I believe we talked about this on a former episode, that what the food industry went through.
Yes.
The clothing industry.
She talked about that in our chat too. Yes.
What she said is that years ago, a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago, it was all about microwaved meals, processed food, like the rise of fast food, the rise of these massive superstores, the rise of this. And I mean,
and birthed out of convenience, right? Same with fashion and these quick this Amazon next day shipping.
Yeah, if you think about how society came to be. So think about people landing in America. Okay, they came, they settled in this little area, cool. And then as they developed that area, it became a city. People moved away from that. But if you moved away, you either had to make your own food or you had to go to a store and buy food. If you did have to buy food, you needed ways to preserve it. The rise of superstores, then white flight back in the day. So now it's the dawn of suburban areas. People needed grocery stores out there in the suburbs because in the city, that's where all the food was processed and brought and developed. And
which is so funny because it's grown not in the city.
yes, exactly. But it's brought there for the distribution center. So then we need to get if you can't make it all the way to the city, you need to get it out to the land. So that was very expensive to have a grocery store out in suburban America. So then it was like, well, here's processed food. So that whole little synopsis to show you it's the same exact thing with clothing. Well, it's like, okay, well, I need it quick and fast and the internet and blah, blah, blah. Now it's one click buy. Fast fashion is essentially processed food. So in the last couple of years, we saw this dawn of Whole Foods really be the disruptor to the food industry. People started to think, wait, what am I putting into my body?
And where is it coming from?
I mean,
and how much am I willing to pay for it?
Yes. And like, we think about how this has changed in our own lifetimes, us in our 30s. When we were kids, it was sugared juices.
Ask me if I ever took a water bottle to school, Matthew.
Sugared juices.
Never.
Day
Sorry,
in
Mom.
and day out.
That's not your fault.
Purple ketchup.
Purple ketchup. That's right.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Nonsense foods.
Yeah.
Nonsense. Dunkaroos.
I was going to say Dunkaroos.
Just nonsense food. And then the dawn of Whole Foods really disrupted everything. People were like, wait, what is going into my body? And now this massive change. And yes, there were always people doing it beforehand, blah, 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 whatever, toot your own horn. But it became a tipping point.
It becomes part of the mainstream.
Whereas, yes, it's in the zeitgeist of like, I care about what's going into my body. Not in a frou-frou, like kind of hippie way where like everything needs to be grass-fed and all this. I just care now.
It's caught my attention.
Yes, it's caught my attention. I care about the ingredients. And now we're seeing a bigger rise of now we're seeing a bigger rise of like farm to table and people caring about food. And we're actually going to have another guest coming on soon.
Very excited.
Yes, Chef Christiane Vargas, who is all about this concept of farm to table conversations, like really getting into the nitty gritty of like what goes into all of this. Rachel is saying that's what needs to happen to clothing.
Correct.
We are in the 70s, 80s of processed food, of dinner in front of the TV. Yep. That's what we're doing clothing wise. Yep. We want it fast. We want it now. Yep. I don't want to care.
We thought we wanted all these things. And now we're like, oh, now there's a clothing desert situation.
Clothing deserts. There's just
there's everything polluting the waterways. Now we all have microplastics in our bodies. Like we thought we wanted this. And then we're like, oh no.
Now look at us dying, screaming.
Just kidding.
Yes, exactly. And so we need that revolution to happen in the clothing industry.
Yep.
And it
takes time
to bring it full circle to what you were saying. The issue is not that like old. It's a new issue.
Not at all.
We can unlearn these terrible habits.
And this is where actually I find that, say what you will about the internet and this kind of global economy, that's where I think that plays to the benefit of the issue.
Yes.
Is that information is so quick and so rapidly moving now. So, we have said, I'll still meet people who don't know that Shein and Temu are like
sweatshops.
Yeah, like that are horrendous. They're horrendous, like
literally.
the worst
Satan's
offenders.
Playground.
I'm trying to think of like what to say about like Satan's hell's something, but yes,
a hellscape.
A hellscape. And so I find it a little bit shocking sometimes that people still don't know, but they're learning and they're learning at a more rapid pace because information gets out at a more rapid pace and because people are maybe a little bit louder, whether that's good or bad, but a little bit more barky about it. And I don't think that's a bad thing when it comes to this particular topic.
Yeah. No, it really, I'm a big proponent of the internet and all things social media because it does like really pull back the curtains and people can see what this is. And people,
Secrets don't stay secrets for long.
Yeah, people are very
Bad things
interested.
don't stay in the shadows for very long.
People are very interested. And yes, I think that there was a time when people were complacent about sweatshops.
Sure.
People knew, but they were like, but it
doesn't affect me necessarily.
Yeah, but it's not happening to me. Right. And now we're starting to see that people are like, oh, wait. And I think it helps that the millennials are now this generation with more buying power in the economy, where it's shifting a little bit more. But when you look at the history of clothing, when you look at how things were made, I mean, like you said, it was our grandparents and our parents' generation that were just having all their clothing made. Right. We could get back to that.
Right.
Like, do I think it will ever get back to that? No. But we could get back to a place of like a happy medium between ready to wear and made to measure clothing.
Correct.
I love this concept of made to order clothing. Yeah. I think that it should be and it could be the dominant form of retail. Yeah. Next evolution of retail with AR technology, with all of our advancements as a civilization, we could get to a point where you stand in front of a mirror, you see the outfit on you, and then it's made. Yep. That could that could be
that's the world I'd live in. Yes. I like it.
Zero pollution, zero waste. Just here it is, made for you. What it'll look like in terms of a textile manufacturing, we'll see. But with the internet, there's no reason that we couldn't get there. But really, when we think about fashion in America and the history of textiles in America, it's really interesting when we look at these like moments throughout time where things have just shifted drastically. And so many of them were not as long ago as we think about. But then even if we think about the Civil War, in the context of the world, it's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago.
It really is not that long ago that people were in the fields in America picking cotton for clothing.
I mean, even to your point earlier, talking about Bridgerton or the Gilded Age, that was not very long ago.
Yeah.
Like I get kind of immersed in this show and I'm like, oh, it was not very long ago.
Like Anderson Cooper is a Vanderbilt. Yep. Like they're walking among us.
Wild.
Yes, absolutely. Like you hear these people.
Among us.
Yes, exactly. These like debutantes and things. But I think it's very interesting that I love social media, that there's all these, the making of and the history of, and people share those clips like incredibly.
We're nothing as a society if not curious.
Yes.
And we're always questioning. I think that's the bottom line item.
Always questioning. And I love that, people say often that we have no more attention span and things need to be quick and things. I don't believe that at all. I think that...
What came first, the chicken or the egg? We have no attention span because y'all made us not have an attention span. Yes. We can take that shit back.
Yes. But if you look at right now, podcasts, hour-long podcasts, 3-hour-long podcasts, people will listen to on a repeat. Okay.
Thank you for listening to us, listener.
Shows, movies. I'll sit down and watch 8 hours of a show. No problem.
Binge watching. Come on.
Binge watching. Movies, runtime. Like it used to be like
interesting.
It used to be like Titanic is breaking the cinema because it's 2.5 hours long. And now it's like that's a average movie length. You got Oppenheimer, 3:10. You got Scorsese movies, 4 hours, Zack Snyder. Our attention span is
it's there if we want it to be.
And now you've got this rise in made to order clothing, custom clothing. People are very much invested in the back end, what goes into it.
I think the other piece of it too is by way of the internet, you see trends happening. Everything kind of shoots around a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually been a great thing for the demise of fast fashion because it's turning into the thing where people don't want to look like everybody else anymore. For a minute, it was like, oh, I want to fit in. I want to be part of that, da-da-da-da. And now there's such an undercurrent of like, that's not original. That's been done before. Oh, we've seen that. Oh, that's cute for 5 seconds. Like, let's move on. Everybody wants to have something that feels more authentic and is more unique.
Yeah. It's almost like we really care about what makes up the fabric of America.
Wild.
Thank you so much, listener.
Thank you.
Check us out next time, because I believe next time will be our first time
It
with a
will
guest.
be our first time with a guest. So everybody buckle up.
And then we're going to pretty much hit the ground running with guests nonstop.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to lay a groundwork of like what the mindset of this podcast is. And because these are going to be common themes that we talk about with the guests, with the people that we bring on, why we're bringing these people on. But it really does come down to this. So I appreciated all this one-on-one time, Melissa.
I know, likewise.
This has been really
But I'm
nice.
also done with you now.
Yeah, no, it had a ripeness.
Right.
It was ripe, and now it's
over now.
It's old.
But it's over now. Yes, all that to say, I'm really excited. And I'm excited because, to you, listener, our guests are going to span the gamut. It's not just all fashion related. So we're really, really talking about the bones of small business and what these pillars of community really mean.
Yes, that is, I love that. And the way I was pitching it to somebody else was, we want to have the conversations that small business owners have with each other behind closed doors on a microphone.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you very much for listening. We'll check you out next week
On the Fabric of America.